Okay,
You're ready.
we are ready. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us for the Brooklyn Tea Party Zoom meeting for May 22nd, 2022. My name is Glenn Nocera. I'm the president of the Brooklyn Tea Party. We're also joined by our members and also our board of directors. And Vice President Larry Schneier, his new wife, right, Sherry?
Yeah, thank you. Yes.
Sherry, who is our secretary. And so we're also joined by our chairman of the board, Alan Benben. And so we're ready to go. Thank you for joining us today, Mr. Astorino. For those who don't know, Rob is running for governor of the state of New York. He is a former Westchester County executive, and we are very happy to have him speak with us today. So Rob, could you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Well, Glenn, thank you. And thanks to everyone on the Zoom call. I prefer these in person, but Zoom's made it a little easier as we're traveling the state.
Right.
And, we've got a primary coming up in about 4 weeks, believe it or not, with early voting. And on June 28th is actually primary day. And we have a real opportunity as a party to win in November. I mean, everything obviously is so screwed up right now between Kathy Hochul, the unelected, ineffective governor who has corruption all over her, just like her predecessor, Andrew Cuomo. We've got inflation running rampant. You can't get bird formula or gas at over $5 a gallon. Crime is crazy. Clearly, I don't have to tell you that in New York City with these no cash bail laws and defund the police and defame the police. So we have a real opportunity to win, but we got to be smart as a party because I don't think any one of us can win. I think there's only one in the race that can actually win in November for a variety of reasons, and that's me. I'm a staunch conservative. I, in Westchester, as county executive, got elected in almost a 3-to-1 Democratic county. But I, focused on taxes and quality of life and issues important to a lot of different people. And they said it couldn't be done, but we got elected and reelected. And I never once raised taxes. We actually cut them, held the budget at $1.8 billion for all 8 years, had a Democratic county board the entire time, by the way. Wow. So, and then when the Democrats went completely off the reservation, like making Westchester a sanctuary county, I vetoed that. And a clinic access bill, which would have made it a civil penalty to peacefully protest outside an abortion clinic, I vetoed that. And by the way, the gun show, which they banned from Westchester, I brought it back. And when they passed legislation to ban it again from Westchester, I vetoed that. And we had the gun show for all 8 years. So I am a staunch conservative. I am proud that I can get elected and get those crossover votes. And I speak Spanish, which obviously is a huge part of our population and even electorate right now. So being able to appeal. So I'm excited about this race, and we've got every opportunity to win it.
Absolutely. And what was your main reasons that got you to go into this race? Like what made you feel, you know what, I want to run, I gotta run? Like what was the reasoning this time around that made you want to run again for governor?
I wanted to finish what I started in 2014, because what I started, we got really close to beating Andrew Cuomo, who was at the height of his popularity, if you remember.
Right. And
I was calling out his corruption back then and saying the state was going in the wrong direction. Unfortunately, as you know, the Dean Skelos-led majority Republican Senate were all too willing at times to be the votes needed for Cuomo to pass his budgets. And, my main opponent, I would say, in our primary, Lee Zeldin, voted all 4 years when he was in the Republican majority for Cuomo's budgets. He voted to fund the SAFE Act, for tax increases. I think this is ridiculous. And he said that Cuomo should be president of the United States back then. I think anyone who says that is disqualified from running as a Republican in New York, because if you didn't know Andrew Cuomo was on a good day, a corrupt thug, and much worse on a bad day, then I think we've got some really different opinions and judgment. So I was pointing my finger at Cuomo, calling him corrupt on our debate stage, while Republicans back then, unfortunately, were too much in bed with him. So I'm ready to fumigate Albany, and I've done it in Westchester, and we're going to win this year and beat Hochul.
Okay, and what are your economic plans for bringing our state back from the brink of collapse, which with companies leaving our state and people leaving the state in droves? What's your economic plans to?
I think, like I did in Westchester, you cannot rein in taxes or cut taxes like I did without reining in spending first. So, again, for all 8 years, we never raised the budget. That's completely unheard of. And that was hundreds of millions of dollars in automatic increases every year that we had to tackle and cut out. So part of it was we reduced the county workforce by 16%. We got in there, it was 5,500 employees. We privatized, and we worked with the businesses, big and small. And there were 44,000 jobs added in Westchester, private sector jobs, while we were there. So I think that is what we need to do in New York. None of these stupid gimmicks. If we're going to bring in businesses and revitalize the economy, first off, we got to get crime under control, because nobody's going to go into the city or stay in the city, businesses or people, if the criminals are coddled and running the streets, and cops are the ones that are defamed and defunded. And we just have this topsy-turvy world. Alvin Bragg should be fired immediately. I was one of the first to say it. And the governor has that authority to do that. So reining in spending is the first and foremost thing that we can do. That gives us an opportunity to then cut taxes. And the regulations right now are just so deep and so wide and so far. And these agencies that are supposed to be overseeing but working with the private sector, they're now the enemy of. They view them as the opponent, which is chasing businesses away. So the taxes and spending are first and foremost, but so too go hand in hand with the regulations.
Absolutely. What are your plans for education? Are you, for example, for school choice? Big
Proponent of charter schools, of our private parochial schools like Catholic schools and yeshivas. I think the parents should make that decision. If they want to send their kids to a district government school, public education, that's fine. We spend more in New York than any other state by far per pupil spending on our public education, and yet the metrics are not good. We keep falling further and further behind against the rest of the world and the rest of the country, because there's no accountability right now. The unions are running the show. I mean, that's clear, right? During the pandemic, they forced the shutdown and everybody listened to them. So I think the education investment tax credit, and I've stood in favor of that for many years, that would help our parochial schools. And I stood with the presidents of the local private colleges, as well as Catholic schools, that, again, that would help those at the yeshivas and any private parochial school. And also charters. I'm a big proponent, again, of giving parents the right and the opportunity to send their kids to schools wherever they want. There's 52,000 kids on a waiting list right now in New York City alone for a charter school. Why do we have a subjective cap on the charter school? I'll tell you why, because the unions don't want to lift that cap, and their lapdogs in the media and, of course, in the Democratic Party won't let it.
Absolutely. Just a little touch upon that question. Roughly, how much do we spend on students?
We're over $25,000 per pupil.
Oh my God!
Which is beyond what is in some ways reasonable, because we're not getting the return on investment there. So there needs to be more accountability. I don't think anyone would mind paying, and we do, an exorbitant amount of property taxes or school taxes. But a lot of that is going for fixed costs like healthcare and for teachers and administrators and buildings, and it's not necessarily going towards students.
Right.
And then when you add in this very controversial curriculum like CRT, or I cannot believe we're having a debate in this country about whether or not a 5-year-old should be taught sex by their teacher. if we had even brought that up 15 years ago, they would arrest the person who says that, or the teacher that wanted to teach that. And now apparently it's normal. So
it's crazy.
It's crazy, but I do think this November is really going to be the revenge of the normal people. I really think that people of all stripes are going to get off the couch and say enough of this insanity, and they're going to want balance. But again, we've got to pick the right Republican. That matters. We're not here to pick a primary winner. We're here to pick a governor.
Right.
And that's me with my experience and ability to get elected in a deep, deep blue county. Trump lost Westchester by, you listening, 37 points.
Well,
37
really?
points.
Wow.
So it's not fun terrain.
No, and it's important to have a two-party system, in especially in this state. As we can all tell, it's like the Bolshevik Revolution that's happening in front of us. So we need an opposition to this insanity, as you mentioned before.
Yeah.
What are your plans for healthcare for New Yorkers?
Here's a big thing that we should all be very concerned about, and it's not getting any attention, but it is on their desks right now in the Senate and the Assembly. Single-payer healthcare, which is the Bernie Sanders dream. They tried this in Vermont, and they pulled the plug after a couple of years because it was so expensive and the quality of care was reduced. They will outlaw private health insurance in New York. So people don't realize how expensive it's going to be, how poor the quality is going to be. And again, you're losing a choice. So healthcare, where we do spend an enormous amount of money, we also spend an enormous amount of money with our tax dollars on people who are not supposed to be here legally to begin with.
Right.
And that is a burden on the system as well, because they're going into emergency rooms.
Yes.
And we're paying for that. And I've been the first, if you've been watching these secret flights that are coming into Westchester Airport from the southern border, I'm the only one talking about this, and I blew the lid on this back in August. These flights are happening almost every single night. They're coming in, and then from there, they're getting on buses. They're going into New York City. They're going into the suburbs, and we get no information whatsoever, but we get stuck with the bill.
Yeah, I seen you on Fox News a couple of times about that. So very good. Thank you for exposing that to the citizens of New York. And speaking of healthcare, I was on the phone call with a Congresswoman's office, and I was speaking about a certain issue with them, and the person helping me was very upset about a separate issue. And she was telling me, I'm trying to help this lady who needs a brain scan, and she needs contrast, for the MRI. And there's a shortage of contrast in this country. And I confirmed it with another doctor, and she said, yes, we're running on our reserves. So, and I don't know if anyone really realizes this right now in the time of this Zoom call, once we see it on YouTube, that there's a contrast shortage apparently in this country. So I'm assuming only priority cases will be getting it, but it's very important. I mean, we all go for, like, I had to go for my shoulder, and we all go for various reasons for an MRI and CT scans and what have you. If we're having this contrast shortage, and we see with the baby formula shortage, which is also a healthcare nightmare.
Well, Glenn, let me say this: the contrast was from a couple of years ago where we were to where we are now and where we're going, and the fact that we've got shortages on our shelves, the fact that prices have exploded through inflation.
Yes.
And the fact that healthcare in our country is enormously expensive, though the best in the world, I think, as long as government doesn't get its hands on it. In the private sector, it's the best in the world. But it's a really big issue that you just brought up. And it's not just the MRI contrast, it's everywhere. Our whole supply chain has been disrupted. We rely way too much on foreign countries for things that we can and should be building here. Absolutely. Producing here, like natural gas and energy. We are blessed with it in this state, and yet we're not allowed to extract it safely from upstate New York. We desperately need the energy. So does New York City. There's a moratorium on natural gas hookups in Westchester and in New York City.
Yeah.
So who's going to start building? No, we're not going to have these expansions if they can't get this hookup. it is just, we're going in a radical direction right now in everything. And that's where I believe, again, revenge of the normal people.
Yeah.
People are going to put a stop to this.
Let's hope there's enough left in the state that didn't run away
We'll
yet.
find out. We'll find out.
My next question I have for you are you for or against the vaccine mandates or passports? And do you believe that the citizens have the right to choose their own healthcare decisions, just like a woman has a right to choose when it comes to abortion, my body, my choice, my healthcare decision? And do you think that that New York State should force workers to have the vaccine to continue to work at their jobs that they already were hired in?
Absolutely not. I have been a vocal opponent on the vaccine mandates and the authority that's been expanded by the governor unilaterally, first Cuomo, now Hochul, that authority which was given by the legislature. And, I marched over the Brooklyn Bridge to City Hall with I think the estimated crowd was 25,000 people in support of no vaccine mandates, nobody losing their jobs, with the municipal workers. We have 34,000 healthcare workers who were fired or lost their jobs in New York because of this mandate for a vaccine that they likely don't need or want. And these are people in the healthcare industry and not being respected. So I think, we've lost our way here with individual rights and freedoms, which is, as I was saying this, and if you go back on my social media, you go back to August or actually June, I believe, of 2020, when a lot of politicians, including many Republicans and the supposed front runner, putting their finger in the wind saying, I don't know, mask mandate seems to be popular. I don't know, the vaccine mandate seems to be popular. I was out in front saying, get these kids in school in September, get the masks off because they don't work. Vaccine should be an individual choice, not a requirement or a mandate from the government. So I am very much in favor of individual liberty. Where New York screwed up really bad, and we're seeing the results, where other states are coming out economically on top and did no worse and many times better than New York with regard to COVID. New York State, you have three buckets. You've got the economy, you've got individual rights and freedoms, and then you've got public health. New York did everything towards public health and got it wrong at the expense of individual liberties and the economy. Right. That's why we're in such a bad shape right now.
Yeah, I mean, you look through the streets of Manhattan, it reminds me of Detroit, with all the boarded up and graffiti everywhere. It's the decaying wreck. What is your position on the attempted rezoning of single-family neighborhoods to include multifamily units, which would destroy places like Long Island and other suburbs?
Well, for 8 years, this was the biggest issue I dealt with in Westchester. We were sued by the Obama administration, and it took effect, this court order, on my first day in office. And we had to build 750 units of fair and affordable housing in white neighborhoods. The housing being built was not the biggest issue. The biggest issue was the federal government wanted to abolish single-family residential zoning, have bureaucrats in DC take over, move people like chess pieces, have no restrictions on height, density, acreage, water issues. And I fought that vociferously and defended Westchester, but also defended every community in New York. I got no help whatsoever, obviously, from Cuomo at the time. But I can tell you, I got little to no help from the Republican majority in the state Senate, where this was an issue that would fundamentally change not just Westchester, every community in New York.
Right.
And I battled. I went to court. I was called a racist in every name imaginable, but I never backed down, and we won. Now, this is coming back under Hochul. She's put a bill similar, and we beat it back. Several months ago, I was leading the charge against this, but that is sitting on her desk, and it's still in the Senate and the Assembly. That will come back too right after the election.
Oh yeah.
If the Democrats win, and I can tell you, with the scars on my back, having dealt with it, I will never let that happen.
Okay, thank you. And with the price of oil, as we all see, as we almost have a have to have an ambulance follow us when we go to the fill up with gas in our cars, because we might drop on the floor when we see the prices when we drive up.
Or a banker, so we can get a big loan.
Yeah, well, yeah, we have to have a second mortgage loan brokers at the gas pumps. With the price of oil, and as you can see with the rise, are you for ideas? You mentioned it. I know you touched upon it about fracking. Are you for fracking in New York State?
Yeah, no, 100%. And I've been consistent on this since 2014 when I ran against Cuomo. It's a big issue that will help upstate New York and revitalize their economy. And it is a needed source of energy for the rest of the state. In fact, the rest of the country. It's one of the biggest natural gas reserves in the United States. And to be able to not tap into it, to have to walk all over our wealth, our jobs, and the energy we need without touching it is pure idiocy. Yeah. And now we're importing natural gas. We're importing everything that we need, and we're exporting our tax dollars and our jobs. And it's ludicrous. But this is where the radical environmentalism of the left is these days. And that too has to be stopped. Within 8 years, we have to be 75% on renewable energy in New York. So if you like your, propane gas tanks for your barbecues outside, you're not going to be allowed that. If you have a wood burning stove, as many people upstate, you're not going to be allowed that. If you have an oil burner in your house or natural gas, you're not going to be allowed that. If you want to go to a car dealership and buy what most of the cars are today, because those are the most affordable gas engine cars, you're not going to be allowed to do that. And their answer is just, so what? Just go buy an $80,000 electric vehicle, and shut up. This has got to stop, and that's why I'm for all of the above. I think renewable energy is great. It's just we're nowhere near what we need, and we're not going to be able to grow with what we have. Indian Point nuclear power plant, they shut down. I was very much in favor. I sued to keep it open because we need it and it's safe. Right. So I'm not afraid to go up against the big dogs and take those battles on, because when it's right, it's right.
Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous when you think of it. Like, I live in Brooklyn, and I don't have a driveway. So what am I supposed to do if I have a electric car? Run a wire. Hopefully I get a spot in front of my house, right? What am I going to do? Run a wire on the sidewalk where people are going to trip, and hopefully plug it into my lamppost? I mean, and then you need a special hookup. It's not like you just plug it in a regular outlet. I think you need a special type of outlet for it. So how could our infrastructure hold this? We have blackouts. 2003 we had a blackout. We have different types of blackouts, brownouts, or whatever you want to call it, during the summer months. And our electric grid is so compromised to begin with. And we keep on putting all this electric cars and what have you. And plus, besides that, with the lithium batteries, how do you talk about environmental stuff? How do you dispose of those stuff? And plus, most of that comes from China. And, at the end of the day, our infrastructure won't be able to hold this amount of electric, and it's just insanity. I feel like I'm living in a Twilight Zone episode, because this is just, when you mentioned 75%, I didn't realize that. 75%. I mean, I have an oil burner. I mean, I don't like paying the oil prices, but what am I going to do? Have candles burning in my house? I don't understand how insanity. What are they talking about?
Get some big candles.
This is why everyone's running the hell out of here, because it's just absolutely insane, and it's disgusting.
Again, though, when people start to find out about all this, it's going to be revenge of the normal people.
Well, hopefully it won't be too late. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
But it's, I guess we could always rely on our media. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully calls like this will get the word out there that people wake up, because before it's too late. Now, how would you as governor address the issue of cashless bail, which is putting criminals back on the streets right after they just committed a crime, while the police officers that arrested them are still filling out the paperwork while they are committing their next crime? It's just craziness. How would you address that? What would you do?
Several things on crime in New York City. First of all, the big kahuna is the no cash bail. It has to be repealed. It is a monumental and deadly failure. But also, we got to get back to the basics. What worked? What made New York City the safest city in America? Stop, question, and frisk. It has to be brought back. And people keep forgetting about the Q. You know, they say stop and frisk. There's a big important middle letter there. That's question. Because a police officer has a constitutional right under the Terry versus Ohio case in 1968. It's actually called a Terry pat-down. So when you frisk, it's based on that Supreme Court decision. It does not affect, it's not unconstitutional. The Fourth Amendment is still affirmed. But by us not allowing our police officers in high crime areas where a police officer has a reasonable suspicion, not abused, but a reasonable suspicion to stop, question, and frisk, and to take that tool out of the toolbox is another reason why high crime areas are becoming higher crime areas and deadly. We also need to, for instance, get back to broken windows. You know, the small crimes quickly become the big crimes if we tolerate that. Putting uniformed police officers on our subway platforms so they not only protect, but they're a visible presence. We also, you know, we need to fire people like Alvin Bragg, who completely ignore the law. That is something that I will not put up with. And Cuomo's and Hochul after him, their parole board, they have released over 20 cop killers in the last 2 years.
20?
You know, 20. Oh, God. That's something we should not put up with.
Yeah, I mean, for example, at my job 2 days ago, outside the gate where the cars drive out, there was a 15-year-old boy shot in the leg by a 16-year-old. I don't know if they caught him yet, but this is around 3:30 or so in the afternoon, broad daylight. And they were coming out of the school and shot the person, the other kid in the leg. It's just insanity. It's like the wild, wild west out there. And this is in Brooklyn. And this is all over our city. Unfortunately, Staten Island's not immune to this either, even though it's safe, I would think, one of the safer boroughs. But it's all over the place. And it's the breakdown of our society when you have the insane leading us. And we, the citizens, have to rise up and say enough is enough and vote these people out of office.
Yep. Well, that's why I'm running, and I would, you know, I appreciate the opportunity, but I also will ask all of you to strongly consider, you know, voting for me in this primary. I'm the best opportunity we've got. I'm the most trusted conservative in this race who actually has been elected in a blue area, which is exactly what we need to do. You know, my ability to speak Spanish is going to help bring in a whole new audience, which I've always been able to do, and attract minorities to our line. So, you know, it's not just vote for any Republican or who the party says you got to vote for. You got to vote for the most electable and trusted conservative who never, ever thought Andrew Cuomo should be president. And that would be me.
Right. And the other question, we have a couple more, and if there's time, we'll take a question or two from the audience through our chat section. We have 3 more questions right now. And the next question I have for you, Rob, is how would you deal with the state's homeless population who are on our subways, with a lot of them having mental issues? Would you also look into having more mental health facilities opened? Again, unlike what Governor Cuomo the senior did years ago when he let them all out into the streets. And from that point on, we have the mental institutions and other healthcare facilities that would deal with their that they need proper treatment. It's a lack of, and that's what we're seeing out on our streets also. There's a lot of mental issues that are causing these crimes. What would you do to address the homeless population?
Look, we had to do that in Westchester, and we had a Department of Community Mental Health. We put money into that because we wanted people off the streets, into shelters, getting services, because most are either addicted to drugs and alcohol, or have mental health issues, and they got to be treated. It does nobody any good and it's not humane, as Bill de Blasio thought it was, to leave people on the streets. They're a danger to themselves and to others. So we've got to make sure we go out and proactively get them off the streets, especially in the cold weather. And one of the things I'm very proud of is we eliminated, it was called Functional Zero by the federal government. We got awards from Housing and Urban Development and Veterans Affairs, where we actually went out proactively and searched for and got almost every known veteran who was homeless in Westchester off the streets and into housing and services and an ability to get a job training issue as well. So that's what we'll do.
Absolutely. Yeah, we forget about our veterans, and we say thank you for your service, but then we forget that they are dealing with a lot of mental issues from dealing with the battles. I mean, we would all feel that way. I mean, you're with your people that you know, and all of a sudden they're dead, they're shot and blown up right beside you. It's a lot of trauma they've gone through, and a lot of that results in homelessness and alcoholism and drug use at the end, and we just throw them away and let them rot on the streets, which is quite disgusting. And we need to protect and care for our veterans, and everyone, of course, but especially our veterans, and give them what they deserve. They fought for us to protect our freedoms. We need to fight for them. Our next question that we have, to sum it up, could you tell the Republican primary voters why they should get your vote, besides your opponents? So why would Rob, are you there? Sherry, are you there?
Yeah,
We're
hold
here.
on.
Rob,
Okay.
Rob is muted. Hold on.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm
What
sorry.
happened?
Yeah.
Ask to unmute.
All right, Rob, we're gonna have
Yep, there we go.
Oh,
Now,
There we go.
that's
Okay.
okay. Technology. See what
Yeah,
happened with the
so-
electric grid?
yeah, exactly. So quickly, look, I am the best suited for this job. I'm the only one with executive experience that I got elected in a deep blue county. And, I won in 14. I won everywhere. I flipped it back to red since in 10, Cuomo swept the entire state just about. I
Mhm.
flipped all those counties back to red and won 49-46 outside of New York City, being outspent 8-1 with, unfortunately, too many people in my own party in the state Senate cutting deals with Cuomo, including the supposed frontrunner, Lee Zeldin, who was in on that secret deal that the New York Post exposed back then. So I am trusted. I am a reliable and deep conservative in this race that can win. And that's what it's going to be. We could either, vote for who we like or vote for who we're told, and then end up losing in November, or we could actually go for the most trusted conservative Republican who actually can win, and that's going to be me.
Okay, very good. And there was one question I forgot to ask you. I'm sorry, I skipped that one. Is under your governorship, and I think I already know the answer, but we'll ask anyway. Under your governorship, will the state of New York still be a sanctuary state for illegal aliens who commit crimes?
No. And it's why I'm exposing everything that's happening at the Westchester County Airport, the southern border crisis now into the interior, directly into New York. The governor has a 1951 law, which I've mentioned, that requires or would allow the governor to get the manifests from these flights, would require anyone here illegally to basically sign in with the state of New York. And that is a law that's on the books.
Oh, wow.
So if you want to actually crack down on illegal immigration into New York, first of all, you don't give a $2 billion fund, cash benefits, health benefits, school, while the citizens are paying the bills and we're the ones who are struggling.
Yeah.
And yet the people who are here that are not supposed to be here are getting all the advantages. And I think, you know, that's really weighing on people's minds too. It's not that I or anyone, most people are not against immigration, certainly not against immigrants, but there's a process. And right now we have no law, no border, and our federal and state government are aiding and abetting the illegal immigration.
Yeah, I mean, it's a slap in the face to people who did it legally. They waited in line. It's like you're on a line in a movie theater. You're waiting to get it to buy your tickets, and all of a sudden, a group of people just cut in front of you on the line, and they say, "Hey, usher, these people just skipped in front of me. I've been waiting on this line for these tickets for 5 hours. What could you do?" "Oh, it's okay. They're allowed to cut in front of you. You're the idiot for waiting online." That's a slap in their face. They spend thousands of dollars on immigration lawyers to do it the right way, to become a citizen of our country. And it's a slap in their face. And also, what is also happening in this, maybe they need the money. That's why they're going after people they forced to stay home. These letters just came out the other day. They supposedly sent it through email. Now, a lot of people are leery when they get an email about scams, but they're sending out for people that were on unemployment. They're now threatening to take the money back. They're saying
it's disgraceful. It's disgraceful.
And it's not even on the news. I don't even see it anywhere. No one's talking about it. But several people that I know personally been getting these letters, and they're fear like, "What? I spent this money already. What do you mean they're coming up? They want to know every log I did trying to find work during that time when they forced me to stay home." It's absolutely insane. But yet they'll give it to the major corporations like the airline industry and all that. But yet they want to deal with well, I guess it has to pay for the baby formula at the border. So they're trying to steal the money back, and it's absolutely disgusting, and shows why people need to rise up and vote these lowlifes out of office, because what they're doing to all of us from many different stripes is disgusting. And there has to be a line where people draw in the sand and say enough is enough. Larry, do we have any questions in our audience in the chat section before we let Rob go?
Yeah, well, I think it's kind of been answered, but Keith has a comment and a question. He said, unfortunately, a man was just shot and killed at the Q train by Canal Street, big station here in New York. How will this stop?
It'll stop when we make it stop. Right now, our government, whether it's City Hall or our state, is allowing it to happen. They're turning away, they're encouraging it, they're emboldening the criminals. I will make sure it stops. We will actually put resources back into the police departments, give them the support that they need, and throw the book at these violent criminals who are out on bail the next day. Enough is enough.
Absolutely. And any other questions, Larry?
That's it.
All right.
Okay.
Rob,
Well,
I want to thank you. And we met in the past, and you actually swore me in 2014 when you were running for governor, when I was president of the Brooklyn Young Republican Club. And I think we gave you a button back then. I hope you still have it.
I got a big, no, you know what I got from the Brooklyn Republican Club? I got a very big eagle.
Oh.
If you remember, I was speaking at the Brooklyn GOP. It was out near, right near Coney Island. And I forget the exact place, but I had that eagle. I still have the eagle, and it's a nice reminder.
Yeah, and also we gave you the some buttons when you went to the Sheraton Hotel in downtown Brooklyn, and you swore us in, and thank you for that. That was back in 2014. Now I'm president of the Brooklyn Tea Party, and I just tell everyone my next run is I'm running for my life to get the hell out of here.
Not yet, Glenn.
Not yet. We gotta help fight. We gotta help fight to bring this state back. And I want to thank you for all you have done for our state, and definitely Westchester, fighting the good fight, getting the word out there, and just fighting to get sanity back to government. And we need an opposition in this state. It's like the old Soviet Union here, and we just got to stop this insanity. So
all right, Glenn.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Take care, everybody.
Take care. Thank you, Rob.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Larry, we could end the video right now. And Shari?